We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such. I know y'all tired of it, but we got a new season of The Past. Welcome to season 8, the Mamba Year. Podcast available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of your podcast platforms. Here you'll get a dose of content related to tech, the productivity world, and most importantly, how to be a better you. The theme for this year, personally, is receiving grace. And we definitely want to do better with receiving it and being open to being a better us from who we were a year ago. So this is season 8 of The Past, and I hope you all enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is time. Episode 419 of The Past is here. And as you see by the title, this is the show that I'm always excited to do, but never sure how it could or could not go. I'll be doing it a little similar, but a little different. I won't have an immense amount of show notes for this show. And when I say show notes, I mean, I'm normally keeping track or keeping tabs of like all of the information, whatever I need to write down, whatever I need to address. I have all of that usually pre-cooked, preset, pre-whatever. And this time around, I decided to be a little unorthodox with that and decide instead to just kind of keep it real chill, real simple, real to the point where I will still be talking about what's going on and what has been happening in my life, but we'll be doing it more from just a everyday conversation. So, shouldn't be too hard. It's probably, as the age old saying, there's a first time for everything. I'm gonna kind of make it similar to what I did for my year in review blog, but it'll be a little different. There may be more things that I address or more topics to discuss compared to what I talked about in the year in review. But the main thing will still be the main thing. You will get a fair share of updates, shares, highlights, lowlights, real lights, and things of that nature. I'm going to be honest. I did a quick mic check, and I didn't even talk about this in my year review, but I'll talk about this first. But let me backstory it and then kind of lead into it. I did a mic check with the mic, and as many of you know, I'm always like, I'm using the fan, and I don't want to fall out or be tired on my own show. But for some reason, fan is running in the background, clear as day, but the mic is working, and the mic I may or may not have an immense amount of editing to do, which if that's the case, we're going to accept it. We're going to be grateful, and we're going to be quiet on that one. But one of many highlights or one of many key elements is I made a big purchase, an adult purchase, if you want to call it that, by upgrading my hardware for the podcast. I'm going to assume everything should be still the same. Had to do a quick interface update because I was running a few screens more normal than I would. So keep it down to one screen, keep it simple. And ironically, that was one of my topics this year. So I'll get into that in a bit. But equipment wise, I did the unthinkable. And I really do mean the unthinkable. by upgrading my hardware for the podcast. So many of you know, um, I will probably have to change the intro for season 9 because majority of my podcasts were recorded using the Yeti, which I still have the Yeti X. Ironically, I still use the Yeti X if I'm getting on like a group chat call, or if I have to do like a meeting. Setting up this microphone takes a little bit more time. So I found myself more attached to a using a Yeti as like a, hey, set up the mic, hook it up via USB. If anything, the only other thing that I've added, which it's ironic because I had one before but didn't use it, but now I'm using a newer version and I like it. It's an accessory called Mute Me. And ironically, it was something that I found I got introduced to via Shark Tank. Real brief story. They did a presentation on Shark Tank where it basically gives you the ability, like if you're in a meeting, if the circle is green, then that lets you know that your microphone is off. I mean, is on and can be heard or can be used. If you see it's red, it basically has it where your mic will not work. Like if I plugged it in right now and hit the mute, had to mute me connected, and it showed red, you wouldn't hear anything for like that time frame that it's pressed. But using that accessory has been a game changer for a lot of meetings. But I use that with the Yeti X. I can use it with this one too, but using this mic, you're put into a different space. Funny connection with that. If you go back, listen to episode 400, my sis Anisha was on, wishing her big props, much love, support. She came on the show, and before leading up to that show, we were getting ready to record, and I'm like a few days before, I say, hey, we're gonna do the year like our episode 400, but if it's possible, do you have any equipment that I could use to record the podcast? And she said, yeah, I got, some stuff here. We can figure out how to connect it and go from there. So she had the Vocaster 2, which is what I use now for my podcast. And she had two microphones, Shure mics. And I know she talked about possibly starting a podcast up, and I haven't really pushed on it for good reason. Life was lifing, and life continues to life for all of us. So I didn't really get too aggressive with that. But all that being said, we were able to do that show. And after we finished the show, about a month or so later, I upped my equipment. I had a friend of mine. And it's so funny. He came on the show, and probably like a couple days later, I got the equipment to enhance the podcast flow. I've probably had, since having that equipment, I think I've had two people on where it was I have my mic, they have their mic, everything's great. No one's really impeding the process of microphone usage, and it was pretty cool. So, um, more to come with that. Like and it's one of those things, you're never sure what you're gonna do until it all happens. Like as of right now, I like having just two microphones, because then what that does, like let's say I have a group of more than, like if it's three or more people, uh I have my microphone that will be just the mic that I use, and then the other mic kind of teaches other people. And I'm saying this openly, and most people who listen to my show know how much of an audio snob I am about this. It teaches people or puts them in a space to be aware of, like, hey, all three of us, or if it's me and someone else, we can't talk at the same time. Like someone has to be in a position to just sit back and not say anything. So using that feature, or having that feature available, is one of the advantages I've found so far with that option. It did also give me a bit of a learning curve and introduce me to a few new things when it comes to Adobe Audition. Tonight I'm using Audition kind of in the basic form, where it's just, I can see levels, I can see time, and it's just my regular audio. I'm not doing it in what I would consider podcast form, or if it was multi-track, which I know a lot of you like what's multi-track, but if you come on the show, you'll understand it a lot clearer. So that was one thing I didn't talk about during the year in review newsletter, but I wanted to address that while I'm thinking about it. Another thing that I really didn't hop into too much, but I did make a thought bubble about is tasking and Notion. So a lot of people have different note taking applications, and I say this all the time. Find what works to your flow and to your style and use it and stick to it. But what I also will share as well is if you want something that can kind of be like a one-stop shop, go for that as well. A lot of people, and I think it's a great thing to do because I've done it. In many instances, going with the Google Flow is never a bad thing. So if you want to just stick to Gmail for your email, um, Google Keep for your notes, tasks for your task management, calendar for your Google Calendar for your calendar options. That's an option, or that's a suggestion I would recommend. Being outright honest, and I've been on record saying this, the big three for Google plays real nice together, whether people realize it or not. Meaning Gmail, Google Calendar, and um, Google Tasks all work within its own ecosystem, very fluid. Uh, to be fair, Apple, same thing. Reminders, uh, email or the mail client, and the Apple Calendars app, they all work well with each other. If you're a person who does not feel like having to integrate from another calendar and you want to just use Apple Calendar as your main source, by all means, always remember accessibility. That's one of my biggest X factors with applications or programs that I use. So, for instance, for a while, I probably talked about it a few times on the podcast. Things 3 was my go to. And I liked Things 3, but I don't use Things 3. It's a task list application, but it's an Apple. It's iOS or OS friendly. So Mac OS, iOS, iPad OS, Watch OS. It works within the Apple ecosystem, for lack of a better term, which is a good thing, but and also a bad thing. So if I'm going to like a web, like if I was going to a Windows computer to try to do it, it's just not a good look. Um, so having that adjustment is a bit of an adjustment in itself. But yeah, I'm using Todoist now. I've been using Todoist for about a month. And I was, well, let me not say a month. I've been using it off and on for like 3 months because I'll make an account, use it, get tired of it. And I'm like, all right, I don't want to use it. I'm going back to Things 3. Did Things 3, didn't like Things 3, went back to Todoist. Didn't want to use Todoist, tried to use another platform. So all that being said, I'm kind of sticking with Todoist right now. The plan is to potentially get tasks managed and handled within Notion. We'll see, but I'm not getting too far ahead of myself with that just yet. With time, with space, with opportunity, we'll figure that out. All right, so I've given like a lot of intangibles and a lot of extracurriculars. Let's get into the year. Let's unpack 2024. Year started off on a high note. I mentioned this again in my newsletter. I started off, so many of you, if you remember, the end of 2023 was the first time I had taken a flight in, well, just say over 25 years, and I'll leave it at that. Um, Last time I took a flight was literally in high school. I didn't know how I would react to a flight today or at that time, but it didn't turn out as bad as I expected. And a friend of mine was doing a planning event. So I wanted to one meet up with her because we hadn't met or hung out in quite some time, literally since school. And also it generated an opportunity to do something that I love and connect with something that I really needed to connect with again, which is planning. And ironically enough, I already had looked at this letter, but there was a letter that she asked us to write to our future self. And I opened the letter a little earlier than expected, but reading it really put a lot of things to light. about how I moved this year, and it was good to do that. But we did a vision board slash execution board event. The theme, everyone was being detained, everyone was being tried for their lack of commitment to planning, and the entire theme and the entire process all came together very flawless and very fluid. She did a great job with the event. Everyone who was there to support, show up, show out, you name it, it went as it needed to go. And I think that was like the biggest takeaway of the entire event. And I was happy for her in seeing her get it to be brought into fruition, because at the end of the day, that was what it was about more than anything else. Um, so taking that flight to Atlanta, I think I went from Charlotte to Atlanta. I went from Richmond to Charlotte and Charlotte to Atlanta. By the way, I mean, Atlanta is a big airport, not gonna lie. But Charlotte's airport, especially with walking from one terminal to another, I felt like I literally took a tour of Charlotte, the city. That's how big it was. And then it's also like when you compare it to a airport like Richmond's airport is very small. There's only two terminals, is like in regards to, like, you have A and you have B, and then it's broken down like for a good amount both ways. Um, the TSA flow wasn't as chaotic, thankfully. I have a big takeaway, and I'll talk about this a little bit too. I learned this when I went to New Orleans later, a few months ago. Pack light. Like, as much as people joke, or as much as you hear that in the song that Erica Badu did about Bag Lady, like, realistically, when it comes to taking a trip or going anywhere, pack light, man. Because if you got a lot of stuff you got packed, the stuff that is going with you, things that you have while you're getting on the flight, you ain't gonna need half of it. Like, when you're in the air, you're not thinking about journaling unless you really need the journaling session or opportunity in the midst of your, like, flight or travels. You're probably not gonna do it. At least I know that was the case with me. Um, so yeah, took that trip, went down there, vibed out big time. Really enjoyed that unplug and that opportunity. Like, the event was great. That same day, late on that night, went to like a pool hall slash bar. Kind of just hung out. Didn't really do much of the pool vibe, but I did get to like go to a bar and just kind of kick it a little bit, watching basketball, just relax and just, be in the moment. Uh, Ironically, I don't remember the exact episode. I will try to look that link up in the show notes. But I did do a podcast while I was down there. That was fun. Um, and yeah, just, kind of kept it simple, kept it chill. The following month, I went to North Carolina, took a drive down in North Carolina to visit my sis. Like I mentioned earlier, she kind of gave me like the chill flow of like, hey, you're here. You don't need to stress with doing a lot. We're going to, the routine will be the routine, but when you want to roll with what we got going, we'll go with it, and we'll make this a good trip overall. And it turned out being a good trip by far. Um, Got to meet her now, soon to be wife, and also got to just kind of play and have fun with the kids. It was a good overall, like, just moment of resetting. And so when I got back in the saddle at work, still on my same grind. Still writing code. I'm on a new team with that. That's been a good experience. The patience has been strong with them and with myself in a great way. There will not be much to be said beyond that, because the appreciation is wholesome by far, and that's just what it is. Um, so yeah, I took that trip. I think before or after the trip, I can't remember exactly when. My friend who hosted the event lost someone near and dear to her, who I actually got to meet. That was real heavy, a heavy point heavy point in time, heavy space with a lot going on. Um, did some pod collabs. One of my friends, he ironically, and it's so funny because like I said, I did 400. I want to say he came on episode either 402 or 403, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm just gonna consider you as the pod god." And I was like, "I just like to record." And literally, like I said earlier, we recorded that show, and it couldn't have been but a couple days later all of my new equipment came in, and I got more equipment that I'm using now. But at the time when it all came in, I really didn't want to touch it, didn't want to be bothered with it because some personal stuff came up, which I'll get into that in a bit. Um, see what else do we have that happened, because there was a lot. It was a good, like I said, 2024 was not a horrible year, but it wasn't like there was a lot of things that I walked away with and seeing and learning and gathering by far um with that. I did, I've always, any of y'all know, this was year 4 of bullet journaling, and I think it's yeah, it's by my foot, I believe. Yeah, so my planner this year, I went with the Edition X model for 2024, and probably one of my faves. I think I probably have like maybe one page left in it. I will be doing my best to do my year end uh reflection, because I'll be realistic. I did not do many reflections this year because when I got near the end of the book, for whatever reason, it didn't go as I would have liked it to go with utilizing it. And I'll leave it at that. I did a lot of There were a lot of times I was making my bullet journal like a commonplace or a catch-all notebook, and that's not a good idea. So for those of you who do or do not know, you want to have notebooks that fulfill its personal intent, and you don't want those notebooks to conflict with other notebooks that you have. So a lot of people who are like big notebook buyers or connoisseurs, you're not judged about this because I do it myself. Like I have a small little notebook. The brand is called Exceed. These notebooks, I don't know if they're still in stock, but they were at Walmart, and they look like a off-brand version of Moleskin, but they're really good notebooks. I think the one that I have now, I'm a little past the halfway point with the notebook, but it's a good, like, hey, I need to write something down real quick. Boom, throw it in there, call it a day. I want to say on the pod last year, it might have been this year, I don't remember. My friend Tara came on, and I was giving her that suggestion about, if you need a notebook and you're like, hey, I'm tight on cash. The odd option is Dollar General. Like Dollar General sells like the composition notebooks. It's like a 3-pack for like $1 or $2. Only problem with those is the pages can fall out randomly and oddly enough in some form. So instead, what I usually recommend or have been recommending now is it's a brand by Walmart that Walmart carries called Pen and Gear. It comes with like a 3-pack of little notebooks. But they also have this notebook that I specifically got, and I use these. I like the one I have now. Like I don't put stickers on it. Like I got 2 stickers from Rickshaw. By the way, huge shout out to Rickshaw. Rickshaw has probably been my saving grace of like carrying my planner, carrying my journal, recently carrying my Kindle. And I literally realized with the amount of pens that I carry, I've gone back to my pen carrying accessory, and I keep that with me. So like in the rickshaw bag that has my planners, I have a bunch of fountain. I have a lot of fountain pens. We'll just leave it at that. But if I need like a nice pen, I have another rickshaw bag that's just ink pens, and I keep things in there. So separating those has been helpful. Like I recently did that separation probably a few weeks ago, and I don't regret it. So I wanted to bring y'all aboard with that as well. But I say all of that, or I bring that full topic up because the planning flow has been still kind of in that hybrid state of digital and physical, but it's been more on the physical side than anything else. And I might have mentioned it in my year in review blog, but I'll mention it here. You will want to get in the habit or become comfortable with writing. And when I say writing, I mean physical pen and paper. I'm not sitting here saying that you need to have pen and paper at all times, but I will say there are going to be instances if you're a person who really has thoughts that you're thinking about and stuff that you want to do. It's better to retain and gather that information in the moment in real time than to make it become a bigger problem that it just doesn't need to be. And sometimes that can be more challenging than it can be challenging on you whether you realize it or not. So I personally try to keep a good pen book or pen paper combo with me if possible. And it does, like I said, you don't need anything massive because you don't want to have something that's going to take you forever to pull out of your pocket or find somewhere. You want something that's a convenient, quick jot down and get ideas and thoughts and go from there. I use this I use this example frequently, but it applies in this scenario. Anytime an officer is involved with a situation or an interaction with anyone, whomever that may be, the known thing that they're going to do is they're going to pull out a notepad that is on that same little spiral OG note flip over notebook that's really small and fits in their pocket, and they're going to pull out a basic big big pen or a ballpoint pen that's a click pen. Some of them get a little fancy and they got the high end pens, and that's cool and that's fine. But for the basic necessity or need, that simple pen and paper is going to be what gets all the information. And once it's full, they hold it where necessary in case they got to do any reporting or jotting any information and go from there. Like I just said, I already talked about the equipment. So I did write about that. And so, like I said, now having two mics has been good. I've been finding opportunities to try to make sure both mics are used. Went all out, got two stands, two mics, the XLR cables. I didn't really want to go crazy with the equipment, but I will admit the Rode mic that I have is probably my fave. My minimal, I won't say regret, my one thing that I really wanted in the long run is I really wish I had gotten one of the pod mics or Rode mics that was red, but I'd like both of them being the same too. The difference that I will probably start doing, because I do want to get one, is I would like to get a red XLR cable down the line. So that way I know if I plug in two mics, okay, red is mine. That's the A mic, and the guest mic or the group mic is my regular black cord that everyone else would be using. So just having those type of things in place is good, and kind of running with that process as well. I talked about this in the review as well. I was trying to this year was me trying to find like the perfect mic combo. And when I say mic combo, I'm talking about microphones to use portably rather. And probably at the beginning of the year, I had these and I still have them. They're literally, if I moved a few things around, I probably can find them. I'm trying to look at something now, but it's not there. They were some real simple little quick little mics that you can kind of clip on yourself or just hold and use. And I used those for a good while and they worked for what I needed them to work for. But then I realized, like, all right, I want my audio to sound a little better and I wanted to get a little bit of a better, it's about sound quality. It's about making sure people can hear and get what you're saying and or what you're sharing. So I went on TikTok and I found a set of mics that were to my liking that I think would be able to fulfill that. Now, the funny story about that is, and I think, yeah, now, yeah, because now the third one I'm not using, but I ended up getting like two extra sets with the original one that I got. So the other two sets, I said, hey, I know people who, if you got a phone with a USB C cable or USB C port, you can just use these mics and they will give you what you need and they'll work great. And I use those mics for a good while. I still will like I'm looking at them now like, oh yeah, they've been there, but we ain't really been in the best of positions or spaces with usage. And that, it happens. So recently, I would say I'd say maybe 2 months ago, I found the newer, and they had been pushing these to me for a while. It is a brand called Newer, Neweer, or Neewer. Excuse me, I had my E's W microphone set. And what makes these such a good set of microphones is it's a plethora of reasons. Number one, you can they come with a little, it's like a little magnet on each microphone. So you have the option of, if you want to clip it to your shirt, you can clip it and it'll record. You can literally sit it against your shirt and then on the back just, snap the magnet on the back. Boom, you got it. You're good to go. Um they come with this little windscreen accessory that at the time I didn't think it was really a big deal, but in me recording when I put on the windscreen versus not using the windscreen, total difference in like recording. Haven't thought about it yet, but the only reason I don't do it is because for the walks, I don't find it beneficial. Um, Considering using that accessory to, um, or using those mics when I do my morning walk cast, but then I'm like, nah, I think since I've been doing them between the AirPods and my studio buds, the studio the ones with the little tip on the end, because the regular studio buds I wouldn't recommend using for recording or audio. Like even for phone calls, I hate using them. I use them if I have to, but I really don't like using them. Instead, I'll use the Beats. I think it's like Beats Pro Fit or something like that. Between those two earbuds, I've been able to get good audio quality with recording. But this newer set, like when I'm just doing like I've used them on my like when I do my Saturday walk, I'll do the 4 miles. Then when I'm done, I will get in the car and try not to turn on the car. I'll get to that in a few too, because the car conversation is that's a whole nother unpack by itself. But the I will put the mic or had a camera up ready to record, and then I will literally hook up the microphone and everything, and it's such a clear audio in how just good it sounds. There was a guy on YouTube. I happened to find this video yesterday where he was comparing the CM28 to the newer microphones with the DJI microphones, which I think those are like $300. This microphone set less than 100, and they are, like I said, they're worth it for the quality. Plus, the other feature that I think is really the selling point is you don't need to worry if the person who's using it, like let's say somebody was like, hey, I need to use these microphones to like record. If they have an iPhone that has the lightning cable or the lightning port, they can hook it up via lightning. If you have anyone who's using an Android with USB-C, or if you have a newer iPhone, like my 15, I think the 15 was the first phone that implemented the USB-C port on the phone. So the 15 pretty much, for lack of a better term, it kind of put me in a position to think like, all right, if I'm going to have accessories, I need things to be USB-C friendly. And everything except my solos are USB-C. So even the headphones I'm wearing now, they're USB-C. Like I don't have to worry a whole lot with like cables and connections because it's little to none of a stress. But they give you those adapters within it. Also, the case supposedly sterilizes the microphones as well, which I think is a good feature. But in the time of me using it, like even so, I used, like I said, I've used the mics pretty frequently for like the last couple of months, and I think this like last week was the first time I literally had to actually stop and charge the case and the head and the arm microphone. So you get a good bang for your buck with those with the accessories by far. Um yeah, so that's the update on the microphones and the technology in that realm. Like I said, I did talk about the job transition. Like I said, a new team that I'm with. If nothing else that I can say has been my biggest takeaway working with them, by far it's been communication and not like I've always realized the importance of this, but lately it's been an eye opener of like, look, I'm not putting myself in a position to drown. If I feel like I'm even remotely struggling against the current, hey, help, 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 ayuda, I need help. Come hither. Let's make a meeting. Let's figure this out. And I've been able to get more done accomplishing things that way, and I don't regret it whatsoever. So huge shouts to them with that. This is a part of the show that I don't want to do, but I'm gonna do it. And it's like I said, I'm reading this. I have it written, but I'm gonna talk about this in its in totality. Um, and I didn't talk about this in the newsletter, but I'm gonna share this with you all because we family. Uh, a friend of mine invited me to a get together, which I had a good time at the get together. We vibed, we kicked it, everything went cool. When I left from there, what I experienced the following day, I can't I can't fathom or even remotely think that I would be seeing things be where they are today from what happened that day. And the simple way I can describe it is I did not know that that following day would be the last day. Like that day, my experience with my father and him being here and him not feeling too well health wise and him going to the hospital. I did not know that would be the last day he would be home or or um, being not only physically here home wise, but also physically here on Earth. I I've been really I'll talk about this before I go into like in depth. There was not really a clear certainty as to how I would operate with anything after I had gotten the news that he had passed away. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a lot on social media. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I almost wanted to just not do the podcast anymore. I didn't want to design. I didn't want to do much of anything, and I really was like in a tough space with really trying to figure out how I want to handle my health, my well being, like everything just kind of was in a shutdown for a good while, and yeah, he had like I think I was helping him with something. Well, he asked about something, and I told him where it was. I left. When I came back to see him again, he was laid on the floor. He didn't fall. If anyone's asking or thinking that, he didn't fall. He just kind of slumped down and slid and just was on the ground. and he didn't have any ability to really walk him or get up. And I wasn't certain how anything would go that day or the following days, but I think I personally say with with an open and honest heart and open and honest mind that the times that I went to go see him and the times that I had opportunities to talk with him really made me learn to like stop and just value where I'm at with just everything. He went to a few different facilities and locations, and the last one he went to, I didn't go to. I don't know why. I still to this day don't know why. But I think it was also me knowing why, because I knew it was, he knew. And one thing with a lot of people when it comes to their faith, their belief, their powers, when they know. And he knew. And the thing was, I still remember because the day that I had got the day that I got news earlier in that day, I was kind of like pretty upbeat. I think I still have the post-it note somewhere. It was a post-it note that I had written on that said, "Today is July 31st, 2024." And it was just sitting at my desk. I didn't think much of it, didn't really put any effort behind it or anything. And was talking to one of my, like, I think like I said, we had walked from one building over to where we were parked. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna get ready to head home, check on him, see how everything going. And then I think I was trying to like say like, hey, did you need a ride to your car? Whatever. She's like, no, I'm good. I said, all right. And got home and things just didn't look right. And so when I came in, saw the suit, my mom told me, and time stopped. Time stopped for like a good couple of weeks. Not gonna lie. Even me talking about it now, y'all can probably hear it. I'm glad I'm not doing a live because I would cut the live, honestly. Talked about it a little bit earlier. That exact same day, there were some accessories that I had gotten for not only my podcast, but an accessory for helping with my business as far as accepting payments, which I had not been doing any design work in quite a while. I didn't care about any of that stuff. I wanted to send it all back. I called many of my friends. Most of the family had already known. A few people had checked in on me to see how I was doing, and those next few days were long. They were long and they were hard. Like the following, like the day that I found out, I shared with folks who I did, immediately worked with and kind of getting them, bringing them up to speed. And I sent an email out to the team, and it was like I said, it was just a rough couple of days. So much so that even that following Saturday, because I had been doing my walks every Saturday, which I'll get into that too. I didn't talk about that, but I'll share that in a moment. Um, I didn't want to go do the walk that day, and I've learned, even especially nearing the end of the year, when you don't want to do something, you're intended to do it because there's something on the other side of what you're not wanting to do, and then when you do it, you realize why you needed to do it. And that was a great a great man, great individual, very spiritual human being. When I when we the day of his funeral, many people had an opportunity to see it when it was streamed. Um, I I was back and forth for myself. Like, do I go up here and talk? Do I need to be behind the scenes? Or as I always talk about behind the screens, do I need to stay off the grid? Should I just not say anything? And I was like, Bryan, go up there. Go say what you know not only can resonate with who he was, but also resonate with those who were there. Because I had a lot of support from friends, any of my friends or any of my colleagues who were able to attend or be able to support. Like, y'all are appreciated tenfold. You just don't believe, you would not believe how much of an impact it was in helping me like get through the process. And when I got up there and spoke, and I'll share this with you all now. Like I said, a lot of people didn't get to see it, so I'll share this as a message during the show. There was a lot of information, a lot of things that he said, but there were a lot of things he may not have directly said these words, but it was things that he would always bring to light for me to be aware of. And they're books that I'm interested in reading or conversations that I've had in talking with others. And it's having the mama mentality. He didn't really know or understand the mama mentality, but being the best version of yourself every day, which ties into what James Clear shares in Atomic Habits of Being 1% Better Every Day, which ties into the four agreements of be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personal, don't make assumptions, always do your best. And I think there was another message that I added. I don't remember the fourth one offhand, but those things were all who he was as a person. And I think the biggest thing that this reminded me of, and it's still something that I stick with to this day, is learning how to just slow down and not feel as though everything has to be done at like 100 miles an hour per se. It's okay if you don't operate at like the highest speed or the highest level. You can have a moment where everyone's not on 10 and the world's not coming to an end. And I don't take it for granted, like anything that he's brought to the limelight for me by far. It connected me with a lot of people that I'd already been connected with, but I really needed to connect with them more frequently. And I still think about it now with like some people who I haven't talked to like a lot, especially since getting that information. So I'm working harder on that too. Um, so yeah, that's where things went between late July and a good amount of August, building up to my birthday. Now I want to move back a little bit, but then I'm gonna move up a little bit, and you're gonna see why this is all intertwining like it is. So April of this year, I did something. I'm sorry, my bad. Before I go into that, one thing that I do want to talk about too is I want to give credit to the group Shut Up and Write on their own meetup. I'm not sure if they have a Facebook page or not. So there was a chapter that had been created or been in existence for quite a while. And I really wasn't using Meetup a lot the way that most people use Meetup. But at one point, and it's crazy because I didn't even meet this group through Meetup. I met this group through a impromptu connection. So a friend of mine who ironically went with me to the holiday party this year, she had basically wanted to like meet up back at the end of 2023. and we met at a coffee shop. Well, the day we were meeting at the coffee shop, a lot of people are coming in. And I'm like, why are there so many people here? It's like a lot of people coming in here. And it was like filling up, getting ready to become packed. So as they're all setting up, we're, sitting around. And sure enough, there was like a meetup event happening there on that Saturday. So we said, we're sitting in on it, and each person is talking about what they're going to work on. And that was the point, and I'm sharing this story because that was the point that kickstarted my newsletter, which now has broken a year. It's now expanded to, I have it on 3 platforms now. I was doing a newsletter strictly on WordPress. It is now on Kit, which is a newsletter source or newsletter place that you can write out letters via email or posting them on the web, as well as on Substack. I got introduced to Substack. I just made a Substack account. It's been about 2 months, maybe. Both Substack and Kit are relatively new. And I'm talking about these or sharing this with you all because the newsletter has been everything. Love doing a newsletter. Still keeping that a thing on Sundays at 9. And the other 2, I was kind of posting what I posted on WordPress. One was at 10, one was at 11. There was one point I was doing it like 11 and 1. I had like a spread out time between each upload. But I'm going to do something a little different. And I'm sharing this with you all now. So you all are getting premium content. Hey, but I will be. So the main newsletter with WordPress is still going to be the same. I'm not going to rattle anything or ruffle anything with that. It will possibly be my space for tech, to talk tech. I want to make that a tech space. I want to do some newsletters related to tech, kind of give some educational things, tidbits about technology, about the computer world, where we are, talk about the good old dreaded ChatGPT AI chaos. And I want to make it just a good tech home or tech avenue. Substack, at least as of right now, will possibly be my hometown for writing sports based topics. So there's a group that I follow. I think that their page is Basketball Intelligence. They write on Substack. And I've read a few of their articles here and there, but I'm talking about them because they're basketball based. I want to do mine sports based and talk about possibly get into some betting talks a little bit, not go too overboard because I'm not a gambler or better to that extreme, but I also am now beginning to get a hold of understanding it a lot clearer, get into some of this MVP talk, among other things. So that's where things are going or will be going soon with those newsletters. So keep an eye out on them. I'm going to work harder on definitely pushing them in different avenues. If anything, I'm still unsure about this, if I want them all to go out on the same day at the same time, or do I want them to go out at the same time on different days? Like one goes out on Sunday, one goes out on Friday, and one goes out maybe on Saturday. We'll see. I do want to get, and I've shared this a little bit too, I would like the podcast to get a little bit more TLC in the sports space. So we'll be working on that as well. So I want to be transparent with that element. And I'm going to I have some news I'm going to share about the podcast, which I've talked about it a little bit, but I'm officially going to announce it near the end of the show. So going back to April, a few months before April, my trainer and his boss talked to me about participating in dun 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 the 10K. I'm gonna be 100% honest. 10K has been in existence for 25 years. During that period, I've stayed as far away from that area because of the 10K. Even working in a role in healthcare, connecting with people who would come to our facility following the 10K, I avoided trying to make, I personally tried making it a goal to not be on weekends when the 10K has happened because it get a little busy, get a little jumpy. But this year I ran, predominantly walked and jogged my first 10K. My time was not the most pretty, it was not the most attractive, but there's a lot of reasons behind it. I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to bring you back to the current. I'm also going to talk about what I mentioned as far as with my dad that week. I want to talk about all that because it all plays into this conversation. So going into the race, my trainer's boss sent me a kind of guided template on like, hey, on these days you should walk or jog this amount of distance or this amount of effort. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Didn't do any of it. Didn't realize why that was a big deal until the race started. So to give you all a minimal walkthrough, the 10K in length is 6.2 miles. That's how long it is, because it's 10,000 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's a conversion from one country's numbers versus like America. We call everything we measure is miles, and everybody measures whatever how they measure it. I'm not gonna get into all that, but they measured it, and it's 6 miles for this race. I had seen a good amount of Monument Avenue when I went to school, but I didn't realize how long Monument Avenue was until I did the 10K. She's a long road, and it's literally a big circle because you're walking or jogging or running, because most of the folks who are in the early part of it are doing runs and they're trying to get certain times. But you are running this race starting downtown, but not even downtown. You're like near, I would say near the Siegel Center. If you know, you know, we'll roll with it from there. You're starting from the Siegel Center. You're going up a few blocks. You're turning on, I believe, Lombardy. Then you're going Lombardy a couple blocks. And then when you hit Monument, you're turning right and you are going Monument for a minute for at least 2 miles. Probably, I would say, I'd almost say like maybe 3 miles. And as soon as you make the loop, you're going another 3 miles. And then your point two gets you pretty much back to the starting part of where you landed on Monument, because from there you're pretty much going a few blocks and you end up near the major park in Richmond. I forget the name of it. It starts with an M. I can't think of it offhand. It's not Maymont, but it's a known park in near VCU campus. The amount of fatigue on my body that day was insane. I was tired. And it wasn't a physical tired, it was a mental tired from just the amount of movement involved with that race. But my accomplishment was accomplished, and it was to complete the race. I did not stop. I think I had maybe like two small little moments where I just had to kind of sit and gather myself, but for the most part, rolled on through, got it done. My watch had a little battle with me, and this is a tip: anyone who ever does the 10K, if you're using an Apple Watch, do not take any screenshots while you're using your Apple Watch, because it will throw your time off. It threw my time off, and I was like, why is my timer not going like it's supposed to? And eventually it did catch up like it needed to, but it was like off by a few seconds or minutes or something. I don't remember, but just let it do its time, and then when you're finished, let the watch do its work and connect to your phone and get all your updates and go from there. Burn a lot of calories that day. I burned a lot of, I got a lot of steps in that day. It was, like I said, man, it was an experience bar none, but I don't regret it one bit. Like I 100% will go back and do it again. Like I don't have any um any ill will about the event as a whole. Uh to give you an idea, 16,000 steps, 8.29 miles, because there was other levels and forms of walking that I did. Like I said, my watch had counted me for 5.98. So it was almost like they pushed it for a 5K run, but it was supposed to be a 10K, but you know, it is what it is. But I got a good experience with doing that. So in the long run, after doing the 10K, my trainer then was like, all right, Saturdays are going to be walking and jogging Saturdays. So every Saturday, I think I started at like 2 miles. Like I went to, and it started off kind of interesting because at first I was like, oh, it's a little basketball court near my neighborhood. I'll just walk around that for 2 miles. Then I'm like, all right, I'll walk around the city. So I walked around the city for whatever amount of miles. Then I was like, you know what? It's Saturday. It's a field near me and they have a track. I'll just go over there to the track, walk, jog, whatever, go from there. And ironically, and this is gonna all again, this is all gonna come full circle when I explain all this when I give the story. There was one point in the summer where I had been walking, and one of my friends who happens to be he was like he was my mentee in so many words from the Boys and Girls Club. He was there. Didn't know. I was like, why does he look familiar? But I can't figure it out. He was there just running. Now me, I'm like, look, I'm just out here walking. I'm just trying to get my body right. But the more I did those walks, the more it helped. Like when I first was doing the walks, 100% truth and honesty, walking that track, I had quite a few days where I was just like, man, I can't do it. I'm just gonna sit. I would sit and take breaks. I'd be tired, and I didn't have my water out there because I literally left everything in the car until I finished the race or finished the walk. Um, like I told you, it's gonna all come up to the forefront. The week that my dad passed, that Saturday, I went out there and walked, and I want to say that walk might have been uh let's see, 4 miles. It was 4 miles that day, August 3rd. I went out there and walked, and I'm going, doing my walk, and it was a guy who was out there, older guy, real nice guy, real chill, calm guy, just go out there, do his bit, and keep it moving. And he was out there that day walking. And, I'm going through my walk. I'm just like, I'm doing, getting it done. And he said, I see you still out here. You still after. And I said, yeah, I'm trying. And he said, nah, you definitely are doing and you're getting it done because you're not taking as many breaks as you used to, or you're not getting as like exhausted and tired. And I was like, that's true. And when he kept walking, it took everything in me not to, but I eventually did. Like I cried heavily because that was my dad talking to me. And I know I don't need, like, this is not information that anyone who's listening needs to know and needs to hear, but it's sometimes not who you get the information from, but the fact that you get the information. And why I'm sharing that now is because when I was from that walk on August 3rd up until today, I mean, last Saturday we're not gonna count because I was kind of on like mental vacay, but we ain't gonna go into that. But every Saturday, I've been Saturday or Sunday, I've been on a walk or a trail or a form of walking, and I've not stopped not one time. Like that particular day, I didn't stop. My mileage was upwards of 4. The max was 4. In September, was preparing. It was good to do the walks because I was preparing for the 5K. 5K, I got a pretty good time. Definitely want to improve that. I need to schedule. Think about doing an 8K next year. Didn't do any 8Ks this year, but doing at least a 10K was and a 5K was a lot. A good walk, good process. And yeah, definitely value the ability of mobility in that regard because it's almost like it's a perfect storm to just be out there and walk. And I think what makes those walks enjoyable, especially when I remember to do it, is when I just go out there and I don't play any music. I just walk because I get into like a very deep zone with the walk. And I don't know how else to explain it other than that. So yeah. Now, like I mentioned, my mentee, okay, I was like, and I say mentee, but realistically, he was just someone who I was in my 20s by then. So he was in his teens and he was like in the process of looking at college and, the future and stuff like that. And he was out there walking and I didn't know anything about his story, anything that was going on. And he shared it with me afterward. I'm not going to put his info out there, but let's just say the walking then benefited me in the long run now because he started a ministry or like a service where it was like, we would just be in the park, men and women come together, we talk about the word, we read the word, and we have a conversation about life and where things are with life. And he had made some minor tweaks, some minor adjustments, and there were like some of them would be for everybody. And I think on the first and the last Sunday of each month, it was for the men. And I started going out there, and I still to this day it's in my car now. And I didn't keep this Bible in my old car. And I'll get into that too in a moment. But when I first was going, I would take my dad's Bible, and I was using his Bible to like read the Word. And now I went, and this all comes full. This really comes full circle. Now he's mainly having it where it's just the men, the guys come together, and we all have our time together and we talk about the word and we talk about life and put everything into perspective for lack of a better term. And when I tell you it's been resourceful and it's been helpful and it's gotten me back on path or on track with where I needed to be and what I needed to do and what I had to go through, it really put a lot on the table. And also it also presented a good amount of accountability because one of my friends who was my mentor had came to me, and when I was talking about going, he's like, "You going out there?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going." And so like I would, if he knew I was going, he's like, "All right, I'll be out there." So he'll pull up. He'll have one of the guys he know will come out there and hang out and get a message. And it was good because it was just an opportunity to just be around like minded people and really talk about like what's going on in the world, but also get into like just putting the right pieces and the right things in place. And like one of the things that has been my takeaway, especially with going to these services or going to these meetings, is being more aware of how important love is and love can be when you implement it and have it as part of your life. And that's really been like something that I've like honed in on over the last few months. Because love is whether we realize it or not, we need love in some form. And it could be self-love, it can be love from another person, it could be love from God. Any source of love. Like love is necessary to get a good amount of functionality throughout our day, whether we realize it or not. Um, so that was really bringing a lot of things to light by far with going to those services. And like I said, I still go. I haven't gone in a few weeks because I was sick and then I was out of town. So New Year, we back active. Um, really looking forward to that this coming Sunday for the New Year. So that'll be pretty fire, pretty solid. Um, following, I did mention this earlier. I did the 5K. Had a good time, had a decent run. Like I said, my twin Chanel, we were there. We vibed. We we did our traditional link up for the birthdays. It was pretty solid. That was actually how she was able to get on board with going to the 5K, and she gave some information with me that like I said, I won't disclose, but um, we were able to have a good convo during the walk and during that movement. And but during the like our birthday, it was good to be able to kind of unplug and go. Like I went to Lakeside. Many people know I'm at Lakeside pretty frequently, pretty often, and I took a risk. Took a risk. Decided to go to decided to sing Dance with My Father. Woo. That was a tough one, but it got done. And then I choked up a little bit, but I kept it together. So that was the more important element than anything else. But yeah, man, it's been, good times, good space, good everything all around. Um, Speaking of good, a few weeks after the 5K, about a week or so actually, I took my first trip to New Orleans. And let me give you some real. Going to places where the early action is the early action and the vibes are the vibes, it's a different scenario. And I'm gonna just leave it at that. I don't want to go into too in depth about it because I know folks who listen, but I will say I had a good experience with going to New Orleans. I feel bad because there was a point where someone who I'm friends with on Twitter lives in New Orleans. She actually wasn't far from where I was, and we wanted to link up and catch up and talk. And I kind of had my time and my schedule all over the place, so it didn't happen as it was intended to. I took that L, but her and we're still real close. I still check in with her, and we have like good conversation. She's really been helpful in my learning of the journey of rebuilding of the journey. I will share one highlight because it's interesting when you share with people, hey, you can do this, so I'm into this, and they're like, oh, I don't really believe you, okay, whatever. And I was like, well, let's find a spot, and I'll show what I can do. And basically, it was the fact that I really do, in the long run, can enjoy. I've always had a knack for being able to sing. I'm not like a all-star singer or anything of that nature, but when it's time to put on the mic and go, I got it. It's doable, it's manageable, it's just in my DNA. And it was, ironically, it was the month of September. And so I went up on stage. Well, I put in the request for Earth, Wind and Fire September. One of the guys who is in a pretty good position within my company was able to get the video. I still want the video, but I'm like, I almost don't know if I want to see it. But from what I was able to gather, especially when I finished, like everyone was like, just like, oh man, you did a good job, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, it was very like refreshing. I'll say that. Um, so yeah, I definitely can. Now I will say, and I'll also add this in too. If you want to expand your palate when it comes to food, go to New Orleans because you will break away, which I wasn't intending to do it at any point anyway, but you will break away from the traditional chicken tenders and fries option that most people do when they go to different places and eat. There are places that you really are actually going to get food. Another thing that was unique there too is that a lot of your bars that are set up in different places, the bars are strictly bars. If you're looking to do food, you got separate options for that. For some reason, and I noticed it the more I kept walking, they really pushed the daiquiri theme to a T, because there are places like pizza and daiquiri, chicken and daiquiri, waffles and daiquiri. Like, it was so many references to daiquiri. I was like, okay, y'all really want me to drink daiquiris, and I didn't get one, but I was like, okay, at least I know now. And in the event that I decide to make that an option, I know it's 100% available. So, um, yeah, talked about that walking and exercise, and talked about the member New Orleans. So we're near the kind of near the end, and then I'm gonna add some added pieces, some elements, and we're gonna do a pass the messaging, and I'm gonna let y'all roll. This past week, it's actually been like, I think I just got back yesterday evening, actually. Yesterday afternoon. Last week, before the week of Christmas, I decided to. Well, before we do that, my bad. I'm sorry. Let me, because it had a whole lot happen that I almost forgot about. So, as you know, been doing my walks. Talked about earlier, been doing the walks or whatever. And I have a friend of mine who every so often will reach out to me, because we both are like ambiverts in our own right, where we like people, but we want people in our space on our terms. And I 100% am with her on this. And I might be speaking on her, out speaking her on her behalf, because that may not be the case. But anytime her and I get together of just hanging out, it's usually going to be in the sense of like we're doing something in a mobile aspect or a moving aspect. I want to say in October, yes, in October we met for a event for suicide awareness or suicide prevention, and she was there. She happened to, like, I think we talked about we were gonna probably run into each other and be there or whatever to do the walk. So we used this opportunity, because I still need to do my walk that I was traditionally gonna do on Saturday anyway, to walk, the track. And then one of my friends who I'm real close with, she was there, was looking for her, didn't know whether she was there or not, wasn't sure. We were trying to message, didn't know exactly where she was. But then as the walk happened, I walked by her, didn't know I walked by her. Then eventually found out where like, I was like, hey, we're going to do another lap. I'll meet you near the finish line. And we met, talked, whole nine and everything of that nature. Fingers crossed, trying to get her on the show soon. So Miss J, if you know, I'm not putting no names on blast, but Miss J, you have a seat at the mic, always ready whenever you want to talk. So I'll leave it at that. But my friend was with me. We walked and we got into like some good convo, some good catch up about everything. Took a few photos. Great experience. Good overall, like, downtime, flow, etc. And every couple of weeks, we will kind of say, all right, it's Saturday or it's Sunday. Hey, let's go out and let's do our walk. So I've already gotten back from New Orleans. I met with a few coworkers. We had like a very low key, mild get together. Had some things happen, traveling things all went every which way. And then my car decides to have a moment. Uh, those who know, I've been OG locked in with the Malibu for quite some time. And the Malibu and I had to part our separate ways. And I was like, all right, I'm looking at, I want to get a car. I need to get something that's going to do what it need to do. The work that I needed on my Malibu was going to possibly be in the minimum range 900 for parts and labor. I said, I ain't going to work. So I decided to take Chelsea for a spin to a dealership. But before going to the dealership, that same day, I'm getting up and I'm already in like a funk the whole week and going into this. And then there's some other stuff that I haven't talked about this on the show, and I'm likely not going to for my own reasons. But let's just say sometimes when you have your instincts about something, it's a reason, and we'll leave it at that. But I get up and I kind of lay down, and I'm back up and I'm laying down and I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do much of nothing. I'm just going to kind of chill. Now the call that came later on could have happened one way or the other. But I also think doing what I did leading into that call happening kind of made everything kind of go in a good direction. And I'll explain that in a moment. And also I'll add this. So my new planner that I have, I'm doing, of course, as y'all know, I'm doing bullet journaling again for the new year. I went with the yellow theme. I got the yellow. This is my first time getting like, normally I'm always getting like a black planner, the blue, the beige. Like I'm really staying on these dark, simple colors. I think my second year of bullet journaling, I had like a teal bullet journal. Still don't know where. I really, really wish I knew where it was. I know what I did with it, but I'm mad that I did it. I think I threw it away, but it is what it is. Fast forward, um, I got the yellow bullet journal. The night that everything went awry and everything went on, I got home, got the bullet journal, opened it, held it, prayed. Prayed that night. Was really like, hey, I'm really, really trying to work on being better, trying to get through a lot of life. Life has been everywhere, but I really want to thank you, God, for putting me in the space that I'm in and knowing that things could have gone a lot worse. And I'm just thankful to still be here. Go through all that. I would say a week later, Saturday, two people called me. One person called, had an opportunity to talk with them, didn't really talk very long. Wasn't much for us to talk about, not in a bad manner, just we didn't really have a major conversation, which happened. The other friend, she called, and I'm like, all right, let me call her back. So I call her back, and she's like, are you gonna go walking today? And I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. I need to walk. I think I need this walk. So I get there. I'm, out on the track, and she's like, I don't know if you hear, I didn't see you, wasn't sure of your car. And I'm like, oh yeah, let me give you. So I give her the update on that. We do the walk. I think it was probably like 3.5 miles, I believe. And we go through the walk. Both of us needed it. Both of us appreciated it for what it was. And I come home, relax for a little bit, probably like about 20, 30 minutes later, get a phone call from the dealership that I literally think I did like a random inquiry about a vehicle. Ironically, this is so random, but it's relevant to the story. The vehicle that I looked at, obviously I got that vehicle, but then there was another one that was there. I guess someone eventually got that one as well because they were both of those were the vehicles that were on display. And I'll share what type of car it is. If you listen to any of my shows, I think I eventually shared what the car is. But fast forward, um, so we're going through the guy's on the phone with me. He's like, yeah, what time do you think you can come in? And I'm looking at the clock and it was like about 9:30. I said, I should be able to get up there by about 1. And he's like, okay. So I'm kind of sitting in like my idle chill space, but then I'm like, no, if I'm committing to doing this and this is an opportunity, this could be what I need. And this could be the reset that could get a lot of things going in a good direction. And I also needed the incentive and I needed something to push me. And I think this was a push that I didn't realize was a push. And I'll talk about that in a bit too. So I'm getting ready to head to the dealership. Mom is here, she had came in, she's talking with me and she was like, do you want me to come? You want me to go with you? And I was like, sure, why not? I, never against having company. It's, not a bad thing. And we take the drive. It's a nice little drive, good little distance. I think I mapped it because I hadn't been there specifically before. Ironically, it was near a Fridays. To give context, like the place was once a Fridays. It's not a Fridays anymore. It's another build. It's another company picked up the space, but they're not even like there's no one in that space now, basically. But I remember going out that way, just didn't realize it was a dealership like right next to it. So we get out there, park the car. They do the appraisal of the car, tell me how much I can get for it, and then they are, crunching numbers. I'm talking to him about like, these are the cars you're looking at. So while we're sitting there, he pulls both vehicles up, and I go through the process of, and I think it was probably my first time in a while. Cause I actually, yeah, Malibu, I didn't do a test drive. Focus, I think I did a brief test drive if I remember. And the Aveo, the Aveo was a floor model. So I didn't even, that was like just sitting there. And then I think they got it all situated. And then I was on the road and gone. So this car, like I was able to actually do a test drive. So it was the Ford EcoSport. I think they both were the same year, if I remember. Both of them were pretty similar, but different in like some of the bells and whistles that you would get. The one I got drove smooth. It wasn't the smoothest, but it still drive. It drives good. The other car was like just fluid all around, liked it. But between the two, based on the cost, based on the necessities, based on just the things that I needed, like I had a rear view camera, I had Apple CarPlay, had a sunroof. Uh, it was very tech friendly, and I'll talk about that a little bit. It was to my liking, plain and simple. And I was like, all right, well, this is the car that I want to go with. So we're working the numbers up. He's working, trying to see what we can do. Talks to his manager. While they're over there talking, I pray. I prayed, really prayed over it. I was like, please provide this opportunity. And I'm telling this story only because it's going to lead to last week. And it all, like, also, and before I go any further, because I want to share this, I want to give a shout out, and I'm not sure what day we're going to do it. But my friend who's pretty much been like a brother, Wyatt, I talked about him earlier. Um, his birthday was the day after my father passed. And I remember talking to him on the phone that next, I think he came, I want to say he came by on that Wednesday. It was either that Wednesday or Thursday. I know he came over and like, he just could tell I needed like, just give me a hug, do something. I'm weak. I'm literally numb. And the day of his birthday, we talked, and he said something that has been resonating with me, and it resonates because people around me hear it so much. And I'm like, look, guys, if I'm suffering, y'all gonna suffer too. But it's suffering with good reason, and that is it. Got to make sense. And lately, things in my life, if they don't make sense, then I'm not. The appeal is not there. The end. And with everything that was going on, it all made sense. Everything was beginning to just line up and work out. And so I'm sitting there as they go over and they look at everything. Cause they were like, well, how much is it left on your payout? Or your, like if you were to do a payout on the car right now, how much do you have left? I'm counting based on how much I've been paying and how much time I had left, not realizing you can go into the app and request the payout and they tell you the amount. So I get that amount, I give that to the salesman who he talks with the manager about it. I'm praying, I'm praying, I'm praying. I'm like, please, please. I like this is an opportunity that can really help with like a lot of things in life and just in my routine. And it's crazy because with having that car in the time of me having it, I've had the car almost 2 months, well, about a month and a half. And in that time frame, like honestly, I've been more intentional with the vehicle, especially like when it comes to little stuff like cleaning the car. Like um I don't know when it's coming in because I got it from AliExpress, but I found like a nice vacuum that I want to keep in the car. I need to look for it, but I want to have a I thought I just found it, but it's not. It's not far from where I'm sitting, but there's a tire pressure, like it'll help with like keeping your tires like if they're too high in PSI, need to be increased in PSI. I have like basically it's an it's air pump for your tires, but you can use it for like multiple things. Like if I need to pump a basketball or whatever, it does all of that. I want to keep those type of things in the car. Like the vacuum definitely will keep in the car. But I'm saying all that because like I've really been big on maintenance with the car. So again, like I said, I'm praying, really, speaking this out. And he comes back and he said, first it was like, well, we can't really do it. You may have to get a co-signer. May have to see if it's another route. My mom was there. She was gonna help, and she started to go through with it. Manager comes back. He realizes like the discrepancy as far as the numbers, so he breaks it down. They check, and they come back, and he says, "We're able to get the car, and you don't have to have her added on." When I tell you that I had to maintain every form of composure in not like losing it over this whole ordeal, I'm here to tell you, I've always been a believer. I'm not going to sit here and never take that out of the equation. But that particular day, I 100% was and I'm still a believer by far. Um, so I never question anything, especially after that. But yeah, I was able to get the get all the stuff, transferred everything from the car, from my old car over to this car. There's a few things that I left in the car, and I was like, hey, I don't need it. It's all good. There was a there were different items that I was like, all right, I want to get like after I had gotten the car home, and I'm like, all right, let me just take what I've moved from the old car into this car. Let me take all of it out, and if I need it, it can stay. If it's like I don't need it, it can go. And there was this blanket that I was gifted by someone who was close to me. And we're still close. I don't want to not make light of that, but I had brought it in, and I'm like, all right. I was like, well, mom, I was like, all right, if you want to wash it, that's fine. But somehow it ended up being washed, dried, clean. And she was like, yeah, I gave it to so and so. And I was like, I was using that to keep in the car. And she's like, oh, I didn't know. And I was like, she was like, do you want to buy? I was like, no, it went to someone who was homeless. That don't even make sense for me to sit there and even like it was one of those things where it's like, Bryan, it's not that deep. But I'm sharing and telling the story for a few reasons. One, the Bible that I talked about that I use of my dad's, I still have that. So anyone, if you're in my car with me, that Bible stays in the car. It's on the back seat. Um, Sometimes, and I've thought about it. There was like one point I was like, I'll sit on the front seat. And I'm like, nah, I think having it in the back seat, it's usually just stayed there and it's been fine. Like it ain't like something that's sliding back and forth. It stays in one space and it's all good. And while I was emptying and cleaning out the older car, I also found a different Bible that I had been using for quite some time, which is the New American Standard Bible. So I keep that version, and it's also been helping me with the version that I read when I'm reading on my Bible app as well. So I definitely was grateful and thankful for that. And also, my mom, like I said, she was with me, and she was like, "Yeah, how you said? Won't he do it?" And I said, "You know what? I can't even like be mad at you for it because he did it, and he never not did it because anything that I've wanted, it's happened, and I can't at any point not be ungrateful for where he's brought me from and what he's putting me through and into with everything." So all of this is relevant, believe it or not, because excuse me, my friend who she was living here at one point. She was her and I were going we were going to do, and I don't know, we're probably still figure out a way to do it, but we were going to do a year in review podcast, and things happen, life happens, and she wasn't able to we weren't able to get it to really line up to be able to do the show. Now, I don't feel any ill will, no malice, no anything about it because life comes at a million miles an hour. However, the biggest factor was she had wanted me to come down because she had, gotten into her new place. She got everything situated. And it was like, hey, you can come hang out. We can catch up. You can kind of get that opportunity to kind of reset. And it benefited me because it high key led to me coming up with my theme for the year, which I'll get into that in a bit as well. So while I was down there, we had a good time. Now I'm talking about this in its storyline now because the vehicle that I previously had, the Malibu, would not have made it down there. It would have been a struggle to say the least. I will be 100% real in saying that in totality. However, with the EcoSport, EcoSport got down there. I think I burned about 3/4 of gas and made it back and probably burned like half. It was like I burned like the gas burned different when I was coming back. I don't know how, but coming back, it was like the drive was pretty smooth. I think I made like a few stops between getting gas, well, not getting between getting something to eat, between having to get my life right, between kind of sitting down and like just stopping and eating for a second. And eventually I just kind of beelined at home and everything was cool, smooth sailing back to the city. But the trip was well needed. It was needed for both of us. It was good for her because I was able to gift her some stuff she didn't expect. She was overjoyed because I had like a pretty nice speaker that I had talked about that I had last year. I don't and I think I mean I had it for most of this year, obviously, even which before she had moved, but I never brought it over and we really never like to kind of like jam out with it or whatever. So to have it there and just kind of play music, and also we got to do our iteration of karaoke, which was to probably one of the most unique instances of doing karaoke. I'll be clear in saying that, but the karaoke experience went great. We were able to just kind of like laugh and joke and have some fun. Like everybody in the family participated, um, learning some things, flowing with some things. Like a lot of stuff just was well needed on all ends. And I think we did. It was on Christmas Day. I think the epitome of it, or probably the peak point, was we made it a goal to probably do as little to no Christmas songs as possible, and it worked out. So win-win on that part as well. Um, but it really was like the trip that I needed and the time that I needed away. I thought about it in the long run because I did this today. There was one picture that I put up of where I went to, like one of the last spots I went to, and I was like, dang, I shouldn't have put it up online. But then I'm like, it's not the end of the world. And also, I'm on vacation, so it's not like anything detrimental. So I ain't really tripped too much on that, only because of what was in the picture. I thought about it after the fact because I was watching a video earlier where people lose their jobs thanks to TikTok. And I'm like, we just got folks who do dumb things. That's kind of what that comes down to. But teach his own, and we'll just leave that at that. Um, but yeah, all in all, that's kind of been like that. That was kind of like the rundown of the year. Let me see. There might be like one or two little added pieces I might have. Is Let's see. Yeah, talked about the okay. So we're at I forgot. All right, so theme of the year. Drum roll, please. No, it's not really a drum roll, but the theme of 2025. Well, before I do that, my theme for 2024 was a year of receiving grace. And I really, really, really realized the importance of receiving grace and how valuable it is to give yourself the opportunity and, most importantly, to space to receive grace. That has probably been the biggest X factor that I didn't realize was an X factor until going through with it in its entirety. Still room for growth with that as well, but all in all, like it was definitely it was definitely eye-opening to see. The one thing that I've constantly been saying this year, or well, not saying, but the one thing that I observed this year that stood out when I was looking at my bullet journal was there was one thing in the bullet journal that I did not do that I'm gonna be sure to do in this bullet journal because I've already started writing them down. Is I did not write any intentions, and I looked at I looked at the bullet journal, and I'll break this down to y'all. First page is key, which it shows you the key of how you want to set up your bullet journal. The second page is the intentions, or page 3 as they have it written in here. And I had my intentions page was blank. So I kind of had like a freestyle year of what I did and how I did. Like it turned out fine as you all heard during this podcast, but in reality, that was something that I really thought about in just preparation and planning and things that I did over the year. So like I said, I'm not gonna go into 2025 with no intentions because that is not a good look at all. My sub theme for the year was the year of discipline, and we did okay with the discipline. There was some room for improvement. There was a huge window of opportunity on improving upon discipline or being disciplined. So, gonna work harder on that for next year. Ironically, one of the main theme for 2025 is the year of unplugging. Uh, I've been online and been on the grid long enough. It's time for me to unplug a little bit. Now, will I still post content? Absolutely. I'm going to still do newsletters and write and upload podcasts and share images of designs that I've worked on 100%. But I will not be forcing myself into the subscriptions of everything that goes on. Case in point, the media is going to be, and I'm saying this early on, so do not be mad at do not shoot the messenger. Just embrace the message. The media is going to be a madhouse this year. I repeat, the media is going to be a madhouse this year. And the only reason I'm saying that or sharing that with you all now is because there is a good spot of windows and opportunities that people are going to really have their way with sharing what they feel and how they feel about everything over, under, around, and through the sun, even if we don't need to know it. So be prepared for that. Now, a few days ago on my page, I put up a few images, design concepts. One of them said LLCC and the other one was LLC squared. Some people saw it, some people liked it. Some conversations I had offline to share what those meant, because I know when you see stuff, it's like, I see it, but I don't get it. So can you give me some clarification on what we're referring to? You've come to the right place. So the LLCC supports the 4 sub themes for 2025. And they are the year of learning, the year of loving, the year of creating, and the year of confidence. Those 4 things are going to be very important in preparation for 2025 by far. Plain and simple. So that's X factor number 1. X factor number 2, and I shared this in some forms during the year, but really didn't put a push behind it. So the push will be happening in 2025. I will be creating an LLC for the podcast. This time I'm actually going to do it. This time I'm actually going to follow through with it. And that will put me in a position to have a second LLC. On my page, I had LLC squared because the LLC squared was representing a second LLC, but it was also representing 2 C's for confidence and creating. Prepare to see a lot of content be created. Prepare to see a lot of creations being done outside of the traditional written and video form. Because I've Videos are going to be videos. You can do those in your sleep. I know I'm always saying like, oh, content is so easy to do. And it's like, it is, but it's also like getting your content in the right people's face to be seen. It's not even about going viral. It's about getting the right people to see the message that you're sharing because they need that message, or they needed to read or hear that message to pay forward the message that they just received for someone else to benefit from it. Breathe, Bryan. Just breathe. It's okay. You can breathe. But yes, I want to really hone in on those spaces with everyone and anyone in my life, and really more so for myself. I talked about it before, but this year we're definitely 100% pulled in. Um, the Udemy courses will get done this year. And if I realistically had to do a direct or a more clear sub theme, if we started it, it has to get finished. If it got started, there's no point in starting something else. It's time to finish whatever that thing is, to make that thing happen, to lead to other things being completed. Case in point, I want to make sure I say it exactly as I wrote it because it brings it all home when you really um, look at it. If you can't bear fear, just do it scared. That's one form of it. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, this is the best message for it. And I'm going to probably change this to one of my pictures at the top. Finish what you start. If you started it, finish it. The end. And I know I've found that before and talked about it with agile. Stop starting, start finishing. Same thing. But in this case, I really want people to like put the effort behind the focus and make the process simple. The message that I share with you all tonight, or if you, it's going to probably be up tomorrow morning, is to allow love in your life. And when I say allow love in your life, I mean, if you got to be frustrated or upset with people, it's cool if you need to. But in reality, give the proper things the effort they deserve. And what I mean by that, or why I say that, is because a lot of times we will put ourselves or put our minds in a position of, I don't want to be loving or caring to this person because they don't deserve it. And you don't know if the love that you give them could be the love that could help them not go over the edge. And be inviting to those who are open to the invite. And even if they seem like they're not, just put an olive branch out there. Like I think a lot of this year, people have heard me say this multiple times where I'm like, as much as you want to turn your back on folks, turn your back on them, but also understand that that person is going to need you before you need them. So don't be surprised if they spin the block. And many times that I've shared that with people, it's happened when the person comes back, oh, blah, 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 so and so checked in. I'm like, oh, yeah. Because they can't do it without the person that they're trying to reach out to, that you've kind of tried to guard them away. And that's cool to guard them away. But in the long run, make space for those who deserve it. And finally, and I'm going to give X credit for this because he's the gentleman who's been running the men's ministry session. And I think I shared this on a podcast before. I know I shared it in a couple of walkcasts. Get a glass of water, and I'm gonna do, because I had someone be technical about this. Does it have to be a cup of water? Can it be a mug? Can it be a stand? I don't care what you put it in. Just put some water in an accessory that can allow you to drink it. It can be a cup, it can be a bottle, it can be whatever. Sit it by your bed, and when you wake up, that specific container of water, drink it. And try that every morning for about 5 days. And see how different your days become when people are asking you to pour into them. Because now you've poured into yourself. Now you have your foundation, and you have your tools you need to like function through your flow. Because you can't be in a position to be available for people when you're not available to you. And it's hard to do that when you haven't even gotten up and said, let me let me give myself thanks. Let me give God thanks for giving me an opportunity to see today. Let me stop and enjoy a moment. Sometimes we get up and feet on the floor, gone, we out. And it usually never goes well when you do that. Like, it just never does. So I really want you to, like, as hard as it's going to seem doing it, just embrace the ability to love on yourself and be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself, be open to opportunities. Don't make the process more than what it is, and you'll be surprised at the results. Again, I said this early on, and I even said this in the newsletter. This is one of them ones. This is always the longest, and this is the most in-depth breakdown of the pod of the year. Many of my friends, and I want to give a shout out to my Dutch Village crew, aka Quan and Carlette. Uh, Carlette's been on the podcast. I need to make a trip to the Chickadee chat and check in with Quan and the fam and sit down with the mics and get a show going, because we definitely, the evolution of life has put us in such huge positions with everything. And the reason I'm talking about it is because I shared, like I said, I've been doing the newsletter. I've probably been doing the newsletter for like years. But the year review written form for quite a while. And she shared with me, she's like, I appreciate, I like seeing when you do the year review, because it's a good breakdown of your year and what you experienced. And for many people, and I'm not saying it's going to be the case with her, but a lot of times it makes people like think back, like, what did I do this year? What did I accomplish? Like, what were my ups and downs? How did I handle my highs? How did I handle my lows? How well was I able to handle adversity? And how did I handle diversity? How did I handle adversity? Did I run away? How much like I didn't even really talk about like the amount of volunteering. There was some roles that I got introduced to at work that were not related to my workflow, but implementing them in have been helpful. The team that I work with in that regard, that's been like a blessing in disguise, because they've been patient with me. I've been patient with me. It's just seeing where you've been to see where you're going. And I don't 100%, I don't take it for granted. So I do appreciate you all for sticking with me this long, to another year of podcasting, to a bigger and better opportunity. And I hope season 9 is better than season 8. But I hope you enjoyed or got something. If you got something out of this show, I want you to do one thing for me before we close. On the podcast show notes, there's a link that says send a text. I don't know how it's addressed, but it's at the top of the show, at the top of the link. I want you to click on that, and if you don't have to put your number. You can keep it anonymous. I'm not even concerned. But just leave a message and saying that you listened in, or you gained something, like whatever you gained from the show. And that'll show much appreciation more than anything else. So I say this time and time again, I appreciate y'all. I'm proud of everyone who's been locked in with me on this thing. And we're going to do our best to get more shows, more sit down shows. I know I've been doing walkcasts like crazy, but I would like to get back to sitting in front of the mic and just chopping it up. So that's all I got for y'all. Until next time, this is BT signing out, and I will see y'all on season 9. Truly hope you all enjoyed the show. Definitely was a lot to unpack, but I know you'll walk away with something important. As I share at the end of each season, do find your way to get into podcasting if it's something you would like to do. My podcasts are currently recorded via Buzzsprout. Been very good to me. If you want to learn more about using them, definitely hit me up at thepastbtpod@gmail.com. And also, the microphone that you're hearing me on is the Blue Yeti X. Have been rolling with it for over 3 years. We've been doing this ride for quite some time, so I hope someone could find this mic useful. Again, find those people who are good or helpful in what you're trying to do to be better today than you were yesterday. The primary goal is to be 1% better. Hope you all have an amazing day, and we'll be back again to do this next time.